Well, if it's okay with the Board of Supervisors, I'd like to invite you back down to the stage for another special recognition. And I see our three public safety leaders, too, because they are integral part of the Valor Awards program, fire, police. And I will say just a few years ago, we had the Sheriff's Office actually become part of that entity. We're going to do the presentations on the stage, Chief Senator. There's a microphone that can be handed to you. And if the Valor Award recipients themselves wouldn't mind also coming to the stage, and we're just using this to, again, best present and highlight the value that all of you are. As they're approaching the stage, I'll just give a quick background for it, and then I'll have the two chiefs, if you will, possibly introduce and further recognize. But the Valor Awards program has been around Chesterfield since 1989, and it's had 1,000 attendees at the last event, many of the board members themselves. 28 first responders were recognized and putting themselves in harm's way and saving others. So what you have tonight is just a representative sample of the entire public safety workforce, and actually some of the other Valor Award recipients are in the call of duty right now, so you don't have the full complement. With that said, I'll turn it over to Chief Senator.
Thank you, Dr. Casey. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and Dr. Casey. It's my honor to introduce the recipients of the 2023 Valor RVA Awards. And I know that many of you were present on the morning of December 5th as members of Chesterfield's public safety community were recognized at the Greater Richmond Convention Center. Now, when I start talking this evening, I know that I have a high bar to surpass because it's no stories of valor or commitment and heroism will outperform an animal act in many cases. So I have a high bar here, but I'm going to do my best. The incidents for which our police officers and firefighters were recognized occurred days apart and involved quick-thinking actions in one of the most dangerous environments for first responders, operations in a body of water, and in one case, very swift-moving water. I'm going to ask that firefighter Josh Pruden and firefighter Hunter Bowling just take one short step forward away from the group so I can recognize them first. Firefighter Sean Rapard was not able to attend this evening, but we'll keep him in our thoughts today. At approximately 9:30 p.m. on July 18, 2023, the Chesterfield 911 Center received a call about 4 individuals trapped in the rapids of the Appomattox River. These individuals had been rafting earlier in the evening when their raft overturned, causing them to be thrown into the river. For approximately 2 hours, they had clung to safety on a small island in the middle of the river until passersby heard their calls for help. Chesterfield Fire and EMS and the Petersburg Fire Department responded jointly, as is the case on many incidents occurring right along the jurisdiction's borders. Chesterfield's scuba rescue team arrived on scene and quickly put together a plan to effect the rescue of the individuals who were trapped on an island that was 50 feet from shore and surrounded by Class 3 rapids. River levels were on the rise following recent heavy rainfall, and it was estimated that the floodwaters were moving at approximately 1,770 cubic feet of water per second. To give you a comparison, the average summertime flow rate for this area of the river was about 100 cubic feet per second. With firefighters Jason King and Joe Sims establishing rescue systems upstream and firefighter Randy Malo serving as a safety downstream, firefighters Pruden, Bowling, and Rupard launched a 14-foot paddle raft in the dark from an upstream position and made their way over to the island in a pendulum motion via the rope rescue system. For novices, this can be a dangerous maneuver that can turn rescuers into victims. But with our highly trained professionals, it was the most viable way to bring the individuals to safety before water levels rose any further. Upon reaching the island, the individuals were assessed for injuries, placed in personal flotation device, and moved into the raft. The raft was then pulled to shore using the rope rescue system, and the individuals were returned to safety without injury. The entire team that responded to this incident are to be commended for their service and for the actions of firefighter Pruden, Bowling, and Rupard. They received the Bronze Valor Award, and we congratulate them for this. I'll now turn it over to the Lieutenant Colonel Dan Kelly, my colleague, who will talk about our next incident on Marina Drive.
Thank you, Chief. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thank you for having us here this evening. I'm honored and proud to stand shoulder to shoulder with everyone here and all of our men and women who serve in our public safety agencies. At this time, I'd like to ask Corporal Sean Norman and Lieutenant John Jacobson just to please step forward so you can be recognized. And also like to recognize firefighter Joe Sims, another award recipient, and Senior Officer Ian Kennedy, who could not be here this evening. In the late afternoon of July 21st, 2023, the Chesterfield 911 Center received a report of a cardiac arrest on Marina Drive along the rocky shoreline of Falling Creek. As Chesterfield Police and Fire and EMS units were responding to the scene, the details changed to an individual who had reportedly slipped on the rocks and fell into the water and had not come back to the surface. The incident was upgraded to a water rescue emergency. Police Corporal Norman and Officer Kennedy arrived first to find a chaotic scene. There were 2 family members in the waters of the Falling Creek searching for their loved one. Without hesitation, Officers Norman and Kennedy scrambled down the steep, rocky incline, removed their equipment, and entered the water and began searching for the loved one by diving under the water. As they began their search, they quickly realized the family members who had entered the water before them in an effort to save their loved one were themselves now at risk of drowning. And they had to change their focus from finding the other individual to focus their efforts on saving the 2 who were now in the water. Corporal Norman and Officer Kennedy reached the first family member and brought the individual to shore using a modified swimmer assist technique. They were assisted by firefighter Brian King, who tossed personal flotation devices to the officers and medically assessed the family member once he reached the shore. With one family member safely on shore, the team turned their attention to the second family member who was struggling in the water at a good distance from the shoreline. He is observed disappearing below the surface several times. When he was reached by Corporal Norman and Officer Kennedy, assisted by Lieutenant Jacobson and firefighter Sims, they also assisted, who also arrived on scene quickly and then entered the water. Even though he was close to drowning, the second family member began to fight with his rescuers so that he could stay and search for his loved one. Fighting with the rescuers jeopardized all their safety. Ultimately, he was restrained by Corporal Norman and Officer Kennedy and towed through the water safely to shore by Lieutenant Jacobson and firefighter Sims. As the water rescue unfolded, the fire department scuba rescue team arrived on scene and initiated an underwater search pattern. The initial victim was located a short time later, but unfortunately had passed away. For their actions, Corporal Norman, Officer Kennedy received the Silver Valor Award, and Lieutenant Jacobson and firefighter Sims received the Bronze Valor Award. At this time, if I could ask Police Officer Hope Lane and Officer First Class Robert Wagner just to step forward. You can stand beside each other, that'd be good. On October 25th, 2022, Chesterfield County Police Officer Hope Lane and Officer First Class Robert Wagner responded to Timsbury Circle to help an emotionally disturbed man. The officers encountered a man and family members inside a residence, and after a brief investigation, determined a mental health evaluation was necessary. As Officer Wagner waited with the troubled man for a phone call from the mental health professionals, Officer Lane interviewed family members on the resident's upper floor. Suddenly, without warning, the man attacked Officer Wagner, and through the struggle, he was able to take his service weapon. A struggle for the weapon then ensued, which prompted Officer Lane to quickly come downstairs and render assistance. As the 3 of them struggled, the man somehow freed himself from the officers and then pointed the gun at Officer Lane's head. As the 3 of them struggled, the man, reacting quickly to this threat, Officer Wagner struck at the gun, moving it in a different direction as the suspect fired 2 shots, one of which struck Officer Lane in her leg. Officer Lane drew and fired her handgun at the suspect, striking him 1 time. The suspect, still holding Officer Wagner's gun, continued to pose a threat to the officers. As Officer Lane moved tactically and re-engaged the man by firing another round, she struck him again, and that is when the suspect surrendered and he was taken into custody. In reviewing these chilling incidents, Chesterfield County Police Chief Jeffrey S. Katz reflected, "These 2 officers epitomize selfless courage in the face of the most extreme adversity. Their character, the quality of their training, and their commitment to one another merit recognition. I am grateful for their service, and we will ensure they and their families have the support necessary to grow through this traumatic event. They are both heroes. For maintaining composure in a chaotic, traumatic situation involving a firearm being discharged and an officer being shot, and confronting a troubled person who created a life-threatening struggle, Chesterfield Officer Hope Lane and Officer First Class Robert Wagner received the Silver Valor Award.
On behalf of the board and a grateful county and region, we thank you for your acts of valor, courage beyond the normal day. We thank you for all you do. You make us so proud to say Chesterfield County has the best police and fire and MES in the country. We thank you, and you show that every day. And this is an example of what we see day in and day out from the outstanding people in Chesterfield County. Thank you each for being here tonight, and thank you for what you do and continue to do. And thank your families when you get back home on our behalf for their supporting you through this process. Thank you. Thank you, sir. All the best. Thank you for your acts of valor and your courage. Thank you.